I want to talk a little bit about thread. I didn't do this in the beginning, but thread that you use is really important in machine embroidery, and we carry Robust and Anton polyester. I prefer it to rayon just because I think it's stronger. It doesn't melt, and you can use it both for machine embroidery and for sewing. So you don't have to buy different thread for your embroidery. I'm going to go ahead and thread the machine really quickly. And then I'm going to show you how to do some design positioning in stitch out mode. So when we're ready to stitch out a design, the way to go there is to touch embroidery stitch out down here at the bottom of the screen. And the arm's going to move over a little bit, and this screen will come up. These are our stitch out settings, and you can see that we've got it tells us what we've so far selected: the 360 by 260 Creative Supreme hoop. We do have the straight stitch needle plate on, and we have the dynamic spring motion foot attached. We have our active stitch technology on, and if you remember, active stitch technology is the 3 rollers that portion out exactly the amount of thread the machine needs to make the stitch correctly. And then we have some other options down here. We can either baste around the design or baste around the hoop, and we'll actually do that in a later example. And the machine defaults to have the automatic thread cutter and automatic jump stitch trim on. You can turn those off. You can turn off the automatic jump stitch trim and just have it use the automatic thread cutter, or you can turn it off altogether. When I am quilting in the hoop, I will actually turn off the thread cutter and pull my thread up to the top so that I don't end up with knots on the back side of my quilt. And then for color options, we actually have color block sort, color block merge, and monochrome, which we'll talk about later. I had monochrome on a little bit earlier, so I took that off. What I like about this is it really helps you have the opportunity to take a look and, in this case, turn off monochrome when I don't want it before I go into stitch out mode. Okay, so once I've gone through those options, the next thing is to insert the hoop. So this piece of plastic right here, on the embroidery arm there's a piece of plastic on the bottom and a piece of metal right here. We want to put the hoop connector right in between those two, and then just push all the way back until the hoop clicks into place like that. When you're ready to take the hoop off, I'll go ahead and show that to you now. You press this button down and just pull it towards you. The one thing you do not want to do is press this button down while you're putting the hoop in. So the reason is that you can actually get the hoop in too far. So if you push it in without pushing down on the button, it will only go as far as it should go. And if you were to push the button down, you could actually end up stitching onto the hoop, which is not a good idea. It's really not what any of us want to do. Okay, so I mentioned that we would do some precise positioning here. So to do that, let's say I want to land my name in a particular spot. I'm going to touch precise positioning. And what that's going to let me do, I'm going to select option number 1, and I'm going to actually move my icon. So I selected this lower left hand corner of the design down here. I can either use those options that are provided here, or I can move this icon or this plus sign anywhere in the design that I want to use to line up. Now what's really awesome about this machine is that I can actually zoom in to the point where I can see the exact stitch point that I want to use to line up on my fabric. So let's say I wanted to have this particular stitch point right there be the spot that I want to position on my fabric. I can get into that close a detail. So I'm going to select that spot, and then I'm going to zoom back out to my hoop. And now I'm going to select number 2. What number 2 is going to let me do, and then it moves the hoop. Now I've got a different looking icon here. It's a plus with a circle on it, and it's not green, not lime green anymore. And so I can actually move this icon, and by moving the icon, it actually moves the hoop around under the needle so that I can get that stitch point. Let's say I wanted it right there. I can move it right there, okay? The other thing I can do is, let's say I want to angle this design a little bit. If I touch number 3, I'm going to choose a different point in the design. I'm going to actually come up here and choose this leaf. And again, I want to get in and make sure that I can see what I'm looking at. See, I thought I had the tip of that leaf, but look how far away from it I actually was. So I can take this little cursor here, this cross, and move it right on top of that point of that leaf. I'm going to zoom back out, and now I can touch number 4, and this is where it would normally stitch out based on where I planted my first point, but I can actually rotate this, and my first position point acts as a fulcrum and holds everything else in place, and I just rotate that around. So that gives you a lot of options for design positioning here. And I have gone so far as to do this over and over again until I get it landed exactly where I want. So if I wanted to now, I could go back and make additional changes. But let's say I'm okay with that. I would just touch OK, and then I would be ready to stitch this design.